Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Colorwind Plays. As a part of Sega Saturn Week, we are going to take a look at Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dreams. Now, this is a game that's not exclusive to the Sega Saturn. It's not even that much associated with the Saturn. However, I enjoy this game a lot. Okay, let me see. Hang on. Yeah, that's good. Um, let's see. Should I? No, I'm gonna win. I want to win. Um, this game is not very much associated with the Sega Saturn. However, I would argue that this may be one of the best versions of this game. Yes. Stay with what I know. Now, this game was released for the Sony PlayStation. It was part of the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology on the PlayStation 2, and it's also originally a arcade game. However, the Sega Saturn version features a lot of improvements over the Sony PlayStation version. For one thing, the graphics are a little bit better. It also loads a lot quicker, and some may disagree with me, but I would also say that it sounds better. As for the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology version, which is based on the arcade version, that is also a good version as well. However, I would argue that the Sega Saturn version is above that one because of its controller. You have to use the Sony PlayStation 2 controller on that with only 4 face buttons and its D-pad, which is good and definitely more accessible to a lot of people since the PlayStation 2 is a much more popular system. However, the D-pad for the Sega Saturn version is just it's perfect for fighting games, especially if you have the 3D controller pad, which works extremely well because of its rubberized surface. It's pretty similar to the second model Sega Saturn controller. If you have the first model, it's a bit harder because that D-pad has kind of a hard plastic kind of feel, which I like for some games and I do not for others. This game may actually be a little bit too easy at this difficulty setting. Oh well. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, it does not really matter which version you get. Street Fighter Alpha is a great game no matter which version you get. And I just happen to prefer the Sega Saturn. And especially back in the day when the Sega Saturn was new, during the 32-bit era, which was the late 90s, this was definitely the version to get. Although I believe the PlayStation sold better because it was a more popular console. Which is a shame because the Sega Saturn excels at 2D fighters. If you are a 2D fighting fan, you definitely wanted to get a Sega Saturn because that is where it excelled, whereas the Sony PlayStation had troubles with. As a matter of fact, there's a Sony PlayStation version of Marvel vs. Capcom, which is an abysmal mess. That is not the version to get if you like that game. I believe there's also a version of, I want to say, X-Men vs. Street Fighter. That is not very well done either. Just something to keep in mind if you're looking at older consoles, specifically during this time period, the late 90s. If you are a fan of 2D fighters, you definitely want to go with the Sega Saturn. Well, enough comparisons of this game with other versions of this game. Let's talk about the game itself. Um, I remember when I first saw this game, I was a little, just, I was a little pissed. Let's just say it for what it is. I was a little pissed off because I was expecting Street Fighter 3 after all of these iterations of Street Fighter 2, and instead we were going to get a sort of prequel called Street Fighter Alpha. And I didn't care for it that much back then. I never played it though. It was kind of a biased opinion. I never got my hands on it until much later. I never played in the arcades, and the first Alpha game I believe I played was Street Fighter Alpha 2. That was for the PlayStation 2. Because I had picked up the Street Fighter collection, and that came with Super Street Fighter 2 and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which was the game I was excited about because that game had never been released on a console, a home console that I had. It was never released on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis. I don't think it could have. And the only home version of it at that point was, I believe, the Panasonic 3DO version. Which is interesting because, well, it's powerful enough to play it. It is not ideal in terms of its controller. But anyway, I got that collection for that game, solely for that game. But it also came with a copy of Street Fighter Alpha 2 Gold. And then once I had played that, I loved the art style. I loved the sort of minimalistic style that it had, as opposed to the Street Fighter 2 style, which was a lot of crowds cheering, and it was definitely more like a tournament, whereas this really seemed like, you know, people passing by each other and challenging each other to matches. And I appreciated that. Got him. Anyway, after that, I played Street Fighter Alpha 3, which to this day remains my favorite Street Fighter of all time, no matter which version. The normal numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, Alpha, EX, the movies, any other Street Fighter game you can think of, Street Fighter Alpha 3 is my favorite. Street Fighter Alpha 3. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike is a close second. However, after that, I started looking around for games, and I came across this, and I loved how simple it was, even compared to Street Fighter Alpha 2. It was less frills than the previous games. Had kind of a minimalistic approach, again like the second Alpha game, the Alpha 2. They even had characters share backgrounds. So, like for example, this is also Ryu's stage whenever you play as him. Play against him. So, and then the controls in this game are just so tight. They're just so nice and realized. Whoever designed this game clearly had a certain vision that they wanted for this game. How it wanted it to look, how he wanted it to feel, the kind of tone that it wanted to give. The intro scene shows Ryu and Ken shooting Hadoukens at each other in a desolate field. That is definitely what this game feels like. There's a sense of desolation to this game. There are no crowds, very few people around when you fight. It's all about the fighters and just the thrill of that they get fighting each other and their corresponding backgrounds and stories and the like. Getting to the end here. This is a very fun game. This is the first time you saw a dramatic battle. There's a secret hidden mode in this game where you can play as both Ryu and Ken against M. Bison, so 2 against 1. I believe you can make it 2-player, one character controls Ryu while the other one controls Ken. If I am not mistaken, I believe that is a thing. That later became a full-blown feature in Street Fighter Alpha 3. And it's been returned to on a oftentimes basis. That's also nice. The way that these characters are designed would also become the standard for a long time. I mean, you'll see this version of Ryu in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I believe. And that was made, I think, 5 or 6 years after this game. So this was the first time these sprites of these characters were first seen, and they were used for a long time. And with that, we'll go on to the final battle against Sagat. That's another thing. This game, instead of always being pitted up against M. Bison at the end, like you were with Street Fighter 2, in this one, this started the story aspect of it. You would at times get storylines in between at the beginning of the fights. I'm not getting it here, probably because I put this on the easiest difficulty. Hey, that was my choice, right? Just want to look good for you guys. I don't want you to judge me just because. For the record, I actually am fairly good at fighting games. I'm better at fighting games than probably any other genre of game, which is not saying much. Not that I'm bad at video games, but I never stick around with most games to get good at them. I play them and then just move on once I've completed it, or even when I haven't completed it. I like to sample a lot of different games. There's not really one particular game I'm just really good at. It's just not how I play. And with that, I should try harder difficulty. But for you guys, you've seen a lot of the game, and since you have not seen Ryu's ending, which is good, because I don't want to give away any spoilers in case you have not played this game. You've seen enough of the game that you know if you like it or not. So this has been Colorwind Plays Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dreams on the Sega Saturn. The superior version in my mind. So I will see you guys later, and take care.